Welcome to Theater Advice with OnStage Blog, where we answer all of your theater-related questions. My name is Greg. I am on the editorial staff of OnStage Blog, and joining me today is Chris Peterson, not only who is the founder of OnStage Blog, but a veteran of theater. You've been involved in community theater you've been a director, you've been a producer, you've worked front of house, you've worked backstage, you've also been behind the audition table, right?
It's true.
Tell me about your behind the audition table experience, just briefly,
Well,
because
I've
that's what the questions we're dealing with today.
yeah, no, I've directed close to a dozen productions, both in college and after college. From the uh, community theater sense to the amateur professional ranks, so to speak. And also, in terms of working in my job, I was kind of the audition organizer for two separate BFA level college programs. So I got to sit in these audition rooms behind the table, adjudicating auditions for over a decade. So
Perfect. So yeah, today's topic is audition related. So no better person to answer this than you. And just a reminder, we're going to be answering questions submitted to us to our email, theateradviceosb@gmail.com. We will also go through Reddit, especially theater Reddit, and look and answer good questions that we see there from people looking for advice. And let's get right to it. So today's topic is on auditions, specifically about the audition monologue and the song. So this question was asked by the Reddit username is historically Eva, and she asks, so I'm doing an audition for a theater class, and I was wondering if my monologue and song should be similar because I was planning to do a relatively serious monologue and then a very up-tempo, fun song. Thoughts? Chris, great question. What would be your advice to this person?
great question. And to put some context in it, I mean, this is a struggle that every performer goes through. What do I use for material, number one, and how do I sequence it correctly in an audition? And to this question, should it match? Should there be a continuous theme? There is no right or wrong answer, but there is a couple answers that I would give, and there's a couple pieces of advice I would give. First and foremost, it really depends on the show that you're auditioning for. So if it is something that's more of a classical musical theater show, like a Rodgers and Hammerstein, you want it to something that's going to match the tone, the language, maybe the time period in which those shows are set. You don't want to audition for The King and I or Oklahoma with a monologue from a Hurly Burly, which takes place in the 1980s and things like that. You want something that's going to match the material that you're going to perform, because the whole idea is to not only show off your talents, but to give the casting director and the creative team almost a vision, if you will, of you in these specific roles. So again, you want that material to match, the show that you're going after on that end. The other thing too is when you're picking which piece to perform first, whether you want to do the dramatic monologue first or an up-tempo song, or vice versa. You want to do an up-tempo monologue and a dramatic song. My piece of advice is this: you always want the audition to feel genuine. You want it to feel real. You don't want it to be fake in any way, shape, or form. So my personal piece of advice is, when you're auditioning, always choose whatever emotionally more heavy piece of material last, because this way you could end on that note. You can do an up-tempo piece first, and then you can transition as an actor to something more dramatic, and then therefore when you're done with the audition, you can even extend it, especially if it's especially heavy, by doing something along the lines of like really kind of collecting yourself or showing the process of trying to get out of that character back into a regular space of mind, so to speak. If you do it the opposite direction, and do the dramatic part first, you might transition too quickly. So I might end on a really dramatic note, being like, and he died. All right, now for my next just song, I'll be doing There's Nothing Like a Dame from South Pacific. That's the worst situation I've seen in it behind the audition table, because that tells me that when you go to those lengths in dramatic work, it's not real. You're not going there as an actor. It's all surface, because you can break out of it at a moment's notice.
So is your advice song then monologue if it's a deeply serious monologue? Is that Again,
I
generally, there's going to be some exceptions, but
yeah, I think whatever dramatic piece you do, whether it's a song or a monologue, do it last. End on that note. And there's a great um audition out there for a chorus line Broadway revival. The actor's name escapes me, but just look up audition a chorus line. He does a very dramatic monologue during that audition. It ends, he's crying during the monologue, and it takes him like a good minute to collect himself in order to
mm,
have just a regular conversation with the casting
ah,
directors, and that's what got him the role. Like afterwards, they were like, "You got it. That's it. We're done." And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's the note that you want to end on, something poignant and significant.
Okay. What if is there, going back to the question again, should they match? Should should the performer always perform their, like, let's say they have a monologue, they've just mastered it, they're just killing, and they're good at other stuff, but they're always good to deliver the best at this particular monologue. If that monologue just does not match the play they're auditioning for, should they still do it, or really find a monologue that matches, even if they're not going to kill it the way they would kill their tried and true monologue?
That's a great question, and I will say for any actor that does that, that's a roll of the dice. If you know that you can perform this one monologue from a modern play, and you might be auditioning for Shakespeare or something, Oscar Wilde type of show, which takes place in centuries before that, best of luck to you. But I will say this:
Right.
if you are a properly trained actor, every performer, every actor should have at least three different types of monologues and three different
Mm.
types of songs in their repertoire, if you will, at a moment's notice to perform. Because also, you never know, you might kill that first monologue, and then the director might want to hear more and would say, "What else do you have? Okay, that song was great, but what else do you have in your wheelhouse that you could show us?" You always want to have more in your arsenal to showcase in that audition.
Hmm. Interesting. How many would you say you are? Let me not phrase it for you. How many judges? How many people behind the audition table would you say are strict? They really want the song and monologue to match. So we've gotten your advice. Would you say your view is consistent across different, based on you've been around a lot of different
Yeah,
directors and just
that's a great question. The biggest misconception out there is that the people behind the table, the audition table, care about what exact song or what exact monologue you pick as an actor. What they're really looking for is the performance. Now, if you walk in with something like Memory from Cats or To Be or Not to Be, you better nail that sucker. I mean, you better do the best rendition of that very famous, very widely known piece. The other part of advice that I always give people is pick something obscure, pick something from an obscure musical, pick something from an obscure play or things like that, because then it makes you more memorable to the people behind the table. Because first of all, they're going to, oh my God, I love that song from that musical that I haven't heard in years. And they're going to attach your name and face to it, especially if you perform it well. So
right,
go
right.
obscure if you can. No one, unless they have specific requirements for the type of audition material that you're bringing in, which some shows will do that. I've seen that out there. Um, go obscure. Go something they're gonna attach your name with that piece of material
Yeah.
that you masterfully performed.
Thank you, Chris. Excellent advice. That wraps up this episode. Once again, if you'd like your theater related question answered by us, just email us at theateradviceosb@gmail.com. You can also drop a comment on our Facebook, social, or Instagram at OnStage Blog. Try hashtag theater advice, especially theater advice OSB. And if we see it, we like it, we'll answer your question on the air. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, OnStage Blog. We're going to be publishing episodes probably a couple times a week, and we have a lot more coming. So hope you enjoy. If you do, share, click subscribe, and spread the word, because we have a lot more theater advice to give on all things theater related. Catch you next time.